Don't just live for tomorrow, or just live in yesterday. Just be glad for all you have that's in today. And though you've come through many obstacles.
Hey everyone, Connie here, and welcome to my blind reaction to My Hero Academia, Season 5, Episode 22? 22? 22. We get the numbers mixed up sometimes. Last time we had an episode that was pretty well focused on Himiko. The League of Villains have infiltrated this town and are being greeted by the members of the Meta Liberation Army. And the two sides are going at it. They're just fighting. That's fun. There's still some time until Gigantomachia wakes up and comes after them, specifically after Shigaraki. And the last episode focused pretty entirely on Himiko. She was fighting this member of the Meta Liberation Army who was a reporter and was basically digging into her past. And we found out that Himiko's past is actually pretty tragic. Due to her quirk, she gained a fascination for blood from pretty early on, but the people in her life treated her like a freak and a pariah. It caused her to kind of hide inside a shell during a lot of her school life, up until late middle school, where she would like put on this mask, metaphorically, to pretend to be someone she wasn't, to hide who she was, just to, fit in, basically. But eventually one day she just kind of snapped. It just kind of broke, and she was not able to do so any longer. She attacked one of her classmates, and started drinking their blood out of a straw. And eventually it even progressed further into her just abandoning regular life and becoming a villain. Though her goal, her dream, is to have a real life, to be able to just be who she is. We see in the last episode that she just wants to be able to live a normal life. And we kind of get maybe some glimpses into why she might like Deku and Araka so much too. Because she sees them kind of as what she wants to be. Which, fitting for her quirk. But we also, and speaking of her quirk, we also saw Himiko actually be able to power up her quirk. Kind of on the spur of the moment, she unlocked a new aspect of her abilities. And this is something we've been told many times throughout this the series. We've been told many times throughout the series that quirks can evolve, and a quirk might not even be what you initially thought it was. This was brought up with the entire quirk registration form thing, and All Might telling Deku that he can still fill that out even if he got a quirk later on. So it's like, that's really interesting to see that even someone who's been using her quirk pretty actively is still unlocking new aspects to it. So not only can she transform into a person now, but if they have a quirk, she can actively use their quirk. It's not just a physical transformation anymore, it's actively becoming them, in a way. And that makes things much more dangerous. That makes her much more dangerous. However, even though she's able to do this in order to kill the reporter, as well as everyone, which, looking back on it, it's like, yeah, she definitely died. She was dropped from way high up and is like well past the point where terminal velocity would kick in. Okay. But she got still severely injured from this woman's bomb-based quirk. So she kind of ran off to hide in a shed in the meantime. Twice ends up finding her, but then he gets attacked by clones of himself that are created from another quirk of the Meta Liberation Army. So shit is going down. Shit is going down. They are not holding back in fighting in fighting against the League of Villains here. So that's pretty interesting. Um, Definitely excited to see what happens here, and I hope nothing happens to Himiko or Twice. Honestly, I do like Twice, so I hope nothing happens to them. But we'll have to just watch and find out. So let's do so. When the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades to black and fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the episode. So, that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you at the reaction. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. So this episode was very focused on Twice, with some interesting things happening. So, as he's being held down by the clones, as Himiko's in danger of having her neck snapped and everything, we see that the villain he's facing has two of the clones break Twice's arms. Because, though, of the backstory bit we saw, we know that Twice, that amount of damage is enough to break a clone. So Twice realizes in that moment that he's the real one. This allows him to at least partially overcome some of his psychological trauma that has caused him to have this split personality disorder, this dissociative identity disorder. And he's able to act, something he wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. He breaks away from the clones, is able to fight back against them and save Himiko, while also bringing on the Sad Man's Parade. Almost ultimate move for him, it seems, where he creates a shit ton of clones all at once. And while each clone is weaker than the last, just the sheer numbers is what he's going for with it. Just this massive amount of clones that takes out the other guy's clones and is able to kind of turn the tide of things. We see him help out Dabi and Mr. Compress and Shigaraki and Spinner. And eventually it all kind of comes to a head when one of the clones makes it to the tower that Redestro is in. And we see that clone, I assume it's a clone, it might not be. Actually, we have to, at this point, assume it's a clone. But that clone makes other clones, including clones of the other members of the League. And we finally get to see what Redestro himself can do as they begin to fight. Redestro, his quirk seems to be able to, like, he can grow his arm, it seems. And using his quirk causes, like, this, like, almost rash-like marking to spread across his face. Don't know if that's permanent or temporary, though. But either way, it seems like he can grow his arm and everything, and it changes color when he grows it and everything. I don't know if there's anything more to his quirk. We'll, I guess, have to find out. But we see him taking on the clones with ease. But we also see that he does struggle a little bit when facing the Shigaraki clone. We see Twice try to just comfort Gihren and check on him, and they have a bit of a moment because we found out in the flashback that Gihren is the one who brought Twice into all of this after a horribly huge streak of bad luck that defined his life. So Gihren brought him into this, so Twice had this very strong connection with him. And as the Shigaraki clone is fighting Redestro, he says that he made eye contact with someone down below. And my thought was Gigantomachia, because they showed in the episode that the doctor woke up Gigantomachia, so he's coming. That was my thought. But no, instead we see it's just the actual, like, real Shigaraki. He uses his quirk and destroys the entire building, which pisses off ReDestro. I presume all the clones died from that. What about Giran? Like, because Giran and ReDestro were the only ones still there who weren't clones, except unless there was anyone else in the building at that point. I don't know if the one guy who made the clones there, I can't remember his name right now. I don't know if he was still in the building. It almost seemed like he was supposed to have been, but the clone of Twice made it past anyway, so I'm not sure what happened to him. And while ReDestro was able to protect himself, like, Shigaraki's clone did tell the Twice clone to cover Giran and all, but it's like, did that work? Was he able to survive that? Because the entire building, the entire tower just completely broke down. It just completely collapsed because of the real Shigaraki. So, I don't know. I don't know how that went. But I said in the reaction, I've said it many times before, but saying it again here, I do really love how the League of Villains are a family. That they care so strongly for each other. That they get legitimately angry when any of their family is hurt. And we're seeing more and more that the members of the League of Villains were victims. Himiko was a victim of being mistreated and turned into a monster because of being forced to hide who she was for so long. It just caused her to mentally snap. Twice had a string of bad luck and people mistreating him and being shit to him, and it caused issues on his part, a lot of psychological issues. We just see time and time again that these villains are not as villainous as you might think. They're not doing things for necessarily evil intention. They want to destroy and reshape this world because of how the world has treated them. And it's tragic in a way that they were driven to villainy, that they were driven to doing evil things because of the people in this world just sucking. Humans suck. Humanity has always been terrible. Yeah, there are good people out there, of course. But in general, humanity does suck. And we've caused so many problems throughout the life of humans on this planet. All these wars, all this endless discrimination, and just horrible mistreatment of others. There's never been a point in human history where that hasn't happened. And there never will be. Because we as humans have something called free will, because we as humans are able to make our own decisions and come to our own conclusions, and we have autonomy, and we have just complete sense of self. I don't know how else to put it without just coming across as redundant. Because of all of that kind of stuff, there's going to be disagreements in how things are going to be and how things should be, and in just ways of thinking in general. And so you see all these horrible people doing horrible things. And while there are people trying to help and trying to do good and trying to save people, there's still going to be all of that bad in the world. And it's not only just the big time criminals or terrorists or whatnot. Sometimes it's just regular people who are just really shitty towards others. a lot of times it's politicians and the people in charge who just destroy their own people and their own countries and all, just for selfish reasons and bullshit causes and ideals. And it's absolutely horrible. And so having Horikoshi write the villains in this story as victims of that, having Horikoshi write the villains of the story as people who were victimized and mistreated and abused and abandoned by society, and who just kind of snapped and like felt there was no other path for them to go on because of how they were treated. I think that's genius. I think it's the right move. Rather than just have villains who are evil for the sake of evil, and sometimes those villains are great. There's a lot of villains I like who are just pieces of shit for the sake of being pieces of shit. But villains who have this kind of depth are still important, and especially villains who are real like this. While, of course, the quirk stuff and all is very much fake, it's like you get the idea. Like, people in the real world are driven to horrible, evil actions by others, by the people who abuse and mistreat them. And that doesn't excuse their actions by any means. The actions are still wrong, and they are still wrong for committing to those actions. But you have an explanation on why they were driven to that. Even if they're still in the wrong, even if they're still the bad guys, you see why they're the bad guys. And it's really sad. It genuinely is. So the fact that Horikoshi went through all this trouble of developing these villains to be people, not just even people who were abused and mistreated and abandoned by society, but also people who genuinely have formed this new family with each other, these people whose own families were shit to them in some cases, and who were abandoned and everything, even by the heroes of society. They formed their own family, their found family, and care greatly for each other. All of them are super, super close. I mean, we've seen in the past how pissed off they got over Big Sis Mag's death. And now with Twice and Himiko being put in danger, it's like, yeah, they're pissed again because these are their family. Not just their friends, their family. They love them, genuinely. And that's amazing. I just love that. But we also get one other really big bit of information. We have the revelation from ReDestro that the original Destro, the creator of the Meta Liberation Army originally, is the son of the mother of quirks. This woman created the term quirk and fought against the, at the time, heavy discrimination and vitriol that people with quirks were thrown at them. She fought against that and ended up getting killed because of it. Just trying to defend her son. She originated the term quirk, which is now used just entirely. And her son grew up to become Destro and formed the Meta Liberation Army. Basically, again, just like with the League of Villains, kind of out of revenge. He wanted justice for what had happened. He wanted to fight against the tyranny of the government and whatnot, and how they were restricting quirk usage and all. How they were discriminating against people with quirks at that time. And now, generations later, the descendant of the original Destro, ReDestro, is reforming this, but in a much more aggressive way. The new generation of the Metal Liberation Army, the same general goals, but with a more aggressive stance on it. And it's insane the level of stuff that could come from this. This is a really interesting storyline. I can't wait to see where it goes, especially with everything that's been built up in the arc with Endeavor and all. So there's a lot that they can do with this, and I'm very excited to see this fight between ReDestro and Shigaraki next episode that appears to be happening. So in the meantime, though, tell me in the comments below, what did you think of this episode of My Hero Academia Season 5? What did you think of ReDestro's power, of all of the great stuff happening with Twice in this episode? What did you think of the information we got? Tell me all of that and more down in the comments below, and thank you so much for tuning in. For now, I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.